Hi, my name is Angel Jones. I am the podcast host of 12 Minute Convos. Today, our conversation is going to be based on the topic of mental. I've been building on this wheel of life, which surrounds mental, spiritual, career, physical, personal, financial, family, and then there's the business block. And I've found that I am limited in what I know. Fortunately, I've had some amazing podcast guests. I'm going to start by asking a question, and then each person is going to give their answer. Misty Gilbert will be first, then followed by Tammi Durden, then followed by Thuy Pham. I do hope that this helps you if you are having challenges with your mental capacity, with building your mental strength, that this gives you both the inspiration and motivation to move on. Starting off with Misty. Misty, I would like to know what is one thing that has impacted you mentally the most?
I would say the most important thing that has affected me mentally was the trauma from my childhood because it has altered the way I look at life. And it has been the pain point that I have had to turn into power to maximize those experiences and be able to see that they were happening for my good, not to me, and be able to see the pathway of discomfort, the pathway of pain is actually the catalyst for change. So, though it sounds like maybe why would I choose something that has been a negative experience to say it had the most impact in my life? It has been the very thing that has allowed me to create the success that I've had and to be able to transform my life's experiences into something different.
If I can continue and pick up with that, I would also agree. Several years ago, I experienced some setbacks in my life from divorce, actually, my second divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, what I call my tsunami of setback. But through that experience, it helped build mental toughness. It helped bring about true purpose for my life. And because of that, I am the person, the woman that I am today. And now I'm able to use those experiences to help other people in their journey. So that was definitely instances in my life that actually impacted me and pushed me to purpose through turning that negative into positive.
While I was listening to you, I decided to go back because for me, there are several events in my life, but I think the first one was when I was a child reading a book about a native Indian who was very wise and quiet, and people had issues guessing how he was feeling because a lot of things were happening in his mind. And as a kid, I loved that book and I chose him as an example for me to mirror. And I think that that was a moment where I became maybe more mental or more conscious about the power of thinking and not translating directly through your physical or quick reactions, how you feel and so on. So I think that's how my mental strength started.
Given the experiences that you all have had, would you say as an adult that you've done fair enough measurement as to that time and connect it to this time of your life from a mental exercise perspective? And I'm asking this because we have experiences in life where if we need to get the biceps up, then we do the bicep exercise. But from a mental perspective, have you been doing that? Or have you even thought about what's necessary to enter into that space that exercises that mental faculty?
The mental mindset, learning how to connect your mind and your body is a daily practice. I feel that we aren't taught as children how those actually blend together and work together simultaneously enough. We are naturally taught that our emotions are separate from our mind and that they don't collaborate together. And I think the more that we learn, yes, we may have strengths being very strong in a mental capacity to be able to think and analyze and articulate any given topic, and that might be our natural tendency to problem solve, is to use our brain and the intelligence that we have, but learning the emotional intelligence and having that sync together and learn the energy of our heart and how the mind and the heart actually work together to create the life that we want, to me is a learning process. And that was something as a child was not my strength, was not something that I tapped into. I always did everything mental. If there was a problem mentally, I would try to figure out, how am I going to solve this? The older I've gotten and gone through life's experiences, I've realized there's an emotional element, a part of that equation that has to be considered. How do I feel? Not just what do I think, but how do I feel in an environment? And when you tap into that energy, you actually maximize the power of the mind.
Based on past experiences and just in life in general, I've come to believe that building that mental muscle, it's a continual process. Oftentimes we experience things in life that may be negative or impact us negatively, and we go through a healing process and or transforming our minds and regrouping, or what I call getting rid of stinking thinking, those negative limiting thoughts and beliefs. But it's not enough to end the process there. It's a continual process. It's a continual renewing of your mind. It's a continual growth process, and you never arrive. You're never done. It never ends. It's important to continue to feed your mind with positive messages, positive words, things that are going to help you and grow, so that you can maintain that mental toughness for success throughout the duration of your life.
For me, because it started when I was a child, I didn't see that as building my mental muscle. I think it was a habit, because I only discovered it later when I was an adult, but now I understand that as a child, I was an introvert. So naturally, I felt well by myself, and I think I talked a lot with myself, and I not on purpose, but I worked on my mental toughness with myself. And I think that I really started building that muscle as an adult when I had my business working with coaches who really helped me see patterns about how I act and where my strengths are. And it's how I think I really worked on that mental toughness. But at the same time, I worked on it, but I also, it's more recent. I was also suggested to let it go a little bit and maybe also work on thinking with my heart. So I'm working on my mental toughness, but I also now start working on other parts.
For the person who's listening, who hasn't seen what you three have experienced and seen, because it feels as though you're on top of the game when it comes to identifying what could have been the challenge and understanding how that challenge then contributes to your success, which is a huge mindset shift, which I believe is the 80% of the battle. But for the person who is there right now, who's struggling with those voices in their mind that doesn't contribute to the building of them, what would you say to that person?
My response initially would be to the person who's unable to connect their emotions with their thinking patterns in their mind and their habits of how they've been taught to look at things, is to just be open to the experience and be open to looking at, possibly, how can I look at this with a different perspective than my normal go-to method? What am I shutting off outside of my mind that might be able to contribute to this learning that I'm trying to do in my life? Because a lot of times, Angel, what happens is we've been taught something from the way our parents communicated with us, our experiences in the work environment, socially, around with friends. And maybe the only method we know is what we've experienced in our close circle. And so to look at, how can I look at my life differently, my experiences differently? How can I be open to my feelings or other aspects of my life and not just stay in a thinking mindset? Most of us are shutting down or shutting out something when we do not collaborate with all these extra areas of energy that feed into our heart and our mind. Generally, we've been taught that something is wrong. It's our feelings are wrong. And so therefore we don't trust them. Learning to trust that we make the right decisions and that we will know and follow our heart because we've been given that God-given ability to do so is, to me, the path. And that's largely how I overcame just staying in a mindset and being open to what my heart was feeling and following my heart's desires, is believing that they aren't wrong and believing that energy is meant to be used cohesively together as a bidirectional exchange.
What I would say to that person is get help. When I went through my series of setbacks, and although it was embarrassing and all of those thoughts and emotions and struggles and voices were coming to me, at the end of the day, I had to get help. And the thing about getting help is that it's okay to get help. There's no shame in it, whether it is a therapist or a coach or a mentor. Get the help that you need, because sometimes we struggle with things alone. We're suffering in silence, we're hurting and hiding, and we can't do it by ourselves. So to that person, if you're embarrassed, if you're ashamed, get the help that you need so that you can heal from your past and move forward. I grew up in a religious environment and family, and it was always pray about it, pray about it, pray about it. And that's okay to pray about it. That's a wonderful thing to pray about it. But at the same time, it's okay to get help. It's okay to seek those resources, those people that can help you push past the pain and be able to live the life that you were designed and created to live.
What I would say, several things. First, be kind with yourself and not be judgmental. Sometimes you want to be, I guess sometimes you want to have a goal, you set a goal and then you judge yourself. So it just pause, stop and be kind with yourself. And then when you are maybe in a more peaceful emotional state, take a step back. For me, it's very powerful to be able to get out of ourselves so that we can take a different viewpoint of our situation. But I think it's something that can be difficult to do by yourself. So I also agree with the fact that it could be good to get some help, or at least talk with someone else. And I would not say someone who knows you, who is a friend or a parent. I think someone who could be neutral, who could have that objective viewpoint and discuss with you, so that it's not someone who would judge who you are, so that person can help you see things and build up without judging things.
I've had the experience where I've realized from having past podcast guests back onto the podcast and listening in preparation for the conversation, I'm referring to that person from that episode, from that voice that I heard, that conversation that was recorded. In the midst of it, I've realized there's this mental plaque that occurs that could be called judgment. How, in the midst of everything, would you suggest the person who's had that emotional trauma in their life approach a scenario that could have been painful, that requires a judgment? How do they go forward tomorrow?
Well, speaking from experience, Angel, as somebody who was raised, 20 years in an abusive environment, raped at age 17, and then punished by my parents because of that situation, living in a cult environment where the whole foundation of everything in their beliefs was judgment, I can speak from personal experience that you have to get to a point of understanding that the trauma was meant for your good, not meant to hold you back. The pain was meant as a source to help you learn survival skills, learn how to work through challenges and problems. So the very areas that you shut off emotionally and mentally are things that you're going to have to be willing to go deeply into. The very thing that you naturally want to run from and hide from is the thing that you're going to have to be willing to open up your heart to and to connect to. You're going to have to learn to establish those roots into yourself and know that God designed and created you as a beautiful human being, and that your worth and value is not dependent on others or your life's experiences, that they are separate from you. They have defined who you are as far as they're part of your DNA, they're part of your fingerprint, they're part of what has made you who you are today, but it doesn't have to be your identity. It will be deep, dark work to heal those pathways from your heart and into your head to be able to collaborate in relationships and communicate with others about your experiences, and not let it self-sabotage you into not creating the very thing that you want. Trauma usually keeps us stuck in pain and living in a reactive sense, emotionally driven, not vision driven from what we really want to create in our life.
I think that's so true. Acknowledgement is definitely a key to actually being able to harness the process. And once you can acknowledge what you've been through, where you are, then there's spiritual awakening that takes place. And now you're open to love yourself. I believe that love is the foundation of everything. And it begins with loving yourself. You've got to love yourself through the process, through the hurt, through the pain, through everything that you've gone through. And not only love yourself, you've got to love others, those who hurt you. And then once you can begin to love yourself, and then that's when forgiveness comes into play. You got to forgive yourself. And not only forgive yourself, you've got to forgive those who've offended you, those who've hurt you. You've got to forgive. And the thing about forgiveness is the biggest thing, or the person that benefits the most from forgiveness, is you. And so once you can open yourself up to loving others, forgiving yourself, and forgiving others, then you can pull deep down inside and begin to rediscover who you are, rediscover your purpose, rediscover why you're here, and knowing that your life matters, your life is important, because you've now begun the journey to do the work, to push past the judgment, and you're walking in love and forgiveness and healing now.
When I hear all your insight, it's very hard to do that when we feel so much pain. But I really hope people believe and trust the fact that it's possible at some point. And maybe the first thing is feel the pain and let it go through your body, but not keep it. What has helped me in the past was the same thing, not accept to be a victim, go through the pain and let it go through your body. But I think that having a hope of the what's next, thinking that we can change our future, help not just keep droning. So the what's next is, I think it's a continuity with not wanting to be a victim. And then after that, I think that it's also to see that we are not alone in our pain, and other people are out there. I don't know why, but when you see that you are not that there are other people out there, maybe it also helps that if other people can keep going, maybe it can help us also think that yes, we can also keep going and find the what's next.
It's been a great pleasure having three of you on this conversation. Just before we go, I'd like to wrap up with a statement from each person. What was the biggest takeaway from this conversation in listening?
I would say that each of us have never met each other, but it's amazing how much we connected and how much the strategy of facing our pain and using our pain for a purpose and for a power, knowing that ultimately the foundation of all healing is a basis of love. And that reinforcement of that message to me today was very inspiring.
I think for me today, one big takeaway is that there is hope. From each perspective that was heard today from us all, the ringing message that I received, that there's hope, no matter what you've gone through, no matter what experience you've had, no matter what part of the world you're from, it doesn't matter. Whatever you go through, there's always hope.
I hear those voices, those beautiful voices, and they sound so strong. And I would have never guessed or think about their pain. So I feel that out of a pain or maybe a situation where you can feel weakness, something can grow from that, which is a big, big strength out of that.
Thank you very much, Thuy. Thank you, Tammi. And thank you, Misty. It's been great having a conversation with three of you. It's impacted me tremendously. I'm on the other side listening, and I had chills all the way through from how you all connected in this conversation. And I believe that those that are listening will also be impacted. For those that are listening, feel free to reach out. It's Misty Gilbert. It's Tammi Durden. It's Thuy Pham. All of the links are there. Thank you for listening.